I'm running in short. Kevin, I know. I told you once I
It's
get
fine.
going, forget
That's fine.
it.
I think we have some time.
All right, perfect. So we're going to have a couple questions. We're going to have a Q&A period after this, folks. If you've got questions, start typing them out. Start getting them down in this submission here so that we can see them, so I can answer your questions. This next slide is really just a couple bullet points and some best practices. Clearly describing your proposed solution, self-explanatory. What is the key to this bullet point is the second part that you're looking at here where it says exceeds the stated requirements. What you have to grasp as a government contractor is that you are exceeding requirements, exceeding expectations on a regular basis. At the end of the day, better, cheaper, and faster is what's going to win in government contracting. There is no doubt about it. We get a lot of clients that come to us and say, Renee, we're not the cheapest out there. We're absolutely not the cheapest out there. And I have to tell them, well, government contracting may not be for you because better, cheaper, and faster is exactly what they're looking for. So best approach is storyboarding. When you're looking at actually putting together a technical writing proposal, storyboard that thing. If you don't have a whiteboard, yellow legal notepad, whatever the case is, storyboard. And the way you storyboard, let me boil this down. You start at the end. This is what it looks like. Everything was completed. We were under time, under budget. Then you work backwards to the beginning. Okay, how did you become under time, under budget? Oh, we had expert personnel in place. We had all of our supplies lined up. We had lines of credit that were set, on day one of the contract, whatever it is, and you work backwards towards day one. That's just a project management strategy. And that specifically comes into play in proposal production. The rest of the bullet points somewhat self-explanatory on that. Sticking to the message, clear and concise. The tendency when you start looking at some of these RFPs, RFIs, RFQs, whatever the case is, they're behemoth documents, right? Where you go, goodness gracious, 300, 500 pages, So what the human, especially if you're a one-person shop, the human in you is to say the expectation is, listen, they want something, that has great amount of volume on there. I know they got a page allocation, but I just want to make sure that I'm stuffing everything in there. Yes, I want to tell you about a contract I had 12 years ago that I did absolutely outstanding on. That's not in the requirements. Make sure you are clear and concise. Easily said, very difficult to do for the most part. Sticking to the page allocations. Self-explanatory. Listen, if you are that type of person that is 5 minutes late on a regular basis, guess what? The government contracting submission portion, you should not be in charge of that, okay? Because really, when you're looking at page allocations and you're looking at timing, how do you deliver this thing? The very first thing, we have a ton of analysts who do this on the back end at our firm. But the very first thing that we look at once we've gone through the go, no go, and we've decided, okay, this is a go. We're writing this proposal. We're getting ready for it. What we do is we come into a section called the submission process, meaning, is this a paper submission? Is it electronic submission? So those are big differences, right? Because if it's a paper submission, they're going to ask you, well, we need 3 copies. We need it backed up on a disk. We need a thumb drive, and it needs to be delivered in Sacramento on this particular date and this particular time. You're in San Diego. So what you have to do is you have to come up with a timeline. Let's say you have 30 days, but now you're saying, well, listen, even if I overnight it, it's got to be there on a Monday, still got to get it overnight on Saturday, whatever the case may be. You're going to need to know when that thing needs to go to print. So all of this comes into play in just really being, extremely diligent on your timeline. And once timelines go beyond, you have some fail safes. So here's another great strategy. I talked about the timeline, making the go, no go checklist. Okay, you've decided to go, you get into that 10, 15 day mark and you're 10 days behind. There's just no way that you're going to be able to get this completed. The automatic reaction, get on your email, phone, contact that contracting official, say, hey, how about a 2-week extension? How about a 30-day extension? Now that may or may not happen, but the day to ask for an extension is not the day before it's due, because you make quite a few people angry, especially on the government side, when they're getting calls and emails the day before submission because they're ready for evaluation. And going, oh my gosh, at the 12th hour, all of a sudden you want an extension. what is that conveying to that agency? You're not very diligent in your management processes, right? This is back to the processes side. So I've given a lot of stuff. I know I've thrown a bunch out at you. Kevin, I'll apologize. I even set my timer because I know I'm terrible at this, but I'm at 19 minutes on that side. So Whitney's laughing. I can see you laughing at me, Whitney, but
No, this is
yeah,
perfect. today.
apologize.
This is great. This is great information.
So we'll roll into questions now. If you've got some questions, I don't know if I put everybody to sleep or they just turned off after some of the stuff I gave.
So I got one question, so we'll start with that, and everyone can feel free to either send questions in the chat to me or use the raise hand feature if you would rather ask it out loud. But somebody asks, if you lose a contract, what should you ask in the debrief?
Great question. Absolutely great question. So the first is looking at evaluation criteria. If it's just price, that's self-explanatory, right? Well, we were 20% over the winning bid. How do we get to that 20%? So price is always the key characteristic. And then as it flows down to evaluation criteria, was it that our personnel didn't have the correct resume? Was it our past performance? So it's a specific question. So to answer the question, it's very specific as to, listen, why did we lose? And maybe the feedback is you were high priced. That's it. Or maybe they looked at it and said, well, we weren't very confident that you could actually perform in this because you have no past performance. That's great, right? I mean, that's great feedback where you go, okay, maybe now I need a teaming partner with some past performance specifically in what we're looking to gain here. So it's just a very pointed question back on during the debrief. Listen, tell me how I can win. And for the most part, especially on the state side, we do a lot of contracts on the state side. You know, Caltrans is a large entity out there, but you have Department of General Services, which falls under all the other procurement in the state of California. Always remember this in the procurement process, because when you talk about procurement, you know, people look at it and they go, oh man, it's just this large, crazy market space out there on the internet looking at these RFPs. Always remember this, it boils down to human beings. At some point, there's a human being involved in that process, right? And I talk about this, especially with DBEs and small businesses in general. Listen, palms up approach, meaning you come in with the palms up, go, I don't know what to do. Help me out. Tell me how to win the next one. I appreciate anything that you can give me on that side. So I look at that. I mean, I use that to this day. Large federal contracts where just, you know, sometimes you eat crow because it looks like what you put together, maybe some 5-year-old kindergartner put together with a crayon, whatever the case is. And you just ask, hey, tell me how to be better at that point. So that was a long answer to a very short question on that side.
Great, thank you. Doesn't look like we have any others right now, but we can give people 30 seconds or so to think if they have any more questions.
So one quick reminder about the 1LA program, the 1LA initiative and the procurement program. Go to the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce, look at the 1LA program. It's easy to Google, look in there. You know, we're coming to the end of the very first cohort. It's still up in the air whether or not they're going to have a secondary cohort. I'm being told yes, but we haven't necessarily solidified that as of yet, and when that will roll out or anything else. But I can tell you this, you know, we run a couple other programs out there, and you know, every time that we get courted to produce a program like this, I give the same speech to whoever is asking for this. We come in on a kickoff meeting. I say, listen, here's what I want. You tell me if that's in line of exactly what you're trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, I want contracts in the hands of small businesses. Everybody says they want that, but really getting into the weeds of that, proposal production, cost analysis, project management, you know, getting into the weeds of the day-to-day of how to do that. That's where a lot of the programs out there, I've got to tell you, where I think they're trying to get you educated, small businesses, diverse businesses educated on that side, but the hand holding doesn't necessarily happen for the most part. That's one thing I'm very proud of with the 1LA initiative. It's been quite a success. So we're extremely happy about that. You know, we're hoping that that becomes a model for other agencies out there to do that. And it helps our economy. I mean, everything else around there, you can talk about it, you know, how it really boosts everything else locally for you. Absolutely. So I don't know if we got any
And
questions
Renee,
after that.
you've had some good success in getting firms in that first cohort to actually get through the entire process to where they're now working on contracts for government entities. Is that correct?
That's correct. So just with Caltrans, we're probably right about $3 million in contract awards for the cohorts just in
Right.
this last 4 months. So, you know, we have one particular company that really just started before the One LA program rolled out. And it's small business, diverse business, husband and wife business. And, you know, we've really done really well with them. They're in a couple $1 million mark as far as contract award as well. So, you know, that's been something where, and I know, Kevin, you and I have talked about this, you know, the situation is you see the opportunities out there in the contracting world, government contracting world, but the reality is once you get to the doorstep and you actually get that contract award, typically that's where you're going to need the majority of your resources because you're going to be flying blind, right? Where you go, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do. That's where you really need some help, understanding project management, understanding what you've got to focus on, delivering on that side. So that's always key.
Even getting that first invoice in and getting that first invoice paid is often an uphill battle for folks just to make sure that you check all the boxes and everything.
Exactly.
Well, Renee, thank you so much for presenting. This has been great.
If we have time, I did get one more question.
Great, let's do it.
Just to remind everybody, I'm going to shoot my contact email address in the chat box if anybody wants to reach out. Go ahead, Whitney, I'm sorry.
No worries, that's great. Joseph asks, if I don't have past performance and want to team with another company, how do I find these companies? Do I talk to companies that I already know, or are there other avenues?
Great question. So let me take that question and go a step back. And I kind of talked about research. That's what our firm does, is really research opportunities and forecast opportunities, right? So let me give you a quick snapshot. 2 different databases, very specific here. When you look at usaspending.gov, what you're going to be able to do is take your NAICS codes, do the research, and you're going to see the specific spend in the federal government for what you do. Now, a portion of answering your question is this. Those contract awards are going to be black and white, right on the page right there. And the good thing is you're going to see who that prime contractor is. So this is where you start building your database of who do I need to make contact with. I'm totally lost. I know what I do. I'm a cement layer. I have no idea. I can't do the framing. I can't do anything else. I need to find out who are the prime contractors who are out there who need me as a subcontractor. That's one of the steps, usaspending.gov. Great research point. I will give you the caveat there. Ton of data. When I talk about a ton of data, you can literally spend months and months on this website looking at data, past year's data, and it's a lot for you, especially as a small business. But that one step right there that I just gave you, putting your NAICS codes in there, you're going to see who those prime contractors are. The good thing about that particular website, it'll break it down geographically as well, where you can break it down into the Western United States, even further, Los Angeles County, Riverside, the Tri-County area, San Bernardino, whatever the case is. On the state side, to wait the place to find the actual contract awards and good information is FizCal. So when you go to Cali Procure, you'll see FizCal there. What you're going to see is you're going to see some of those past contracts, and you're going to start developing, okay, who do I need to be in contact with? And then the next step is, so those are the 2 data points, and there's a ton of them, you know, other strategy out there to develop those, but there's 2 data points right there. But here's what I would profess to you is your strategy there, because the next question should be, well, how do I create value to that prime contractor or even to that teaming partner who wants to take me on? What is your certification? How many certifications do you have? Are you sure that the agency that you're targeting really needs that particular certification? Maybe you're a DBE, but yet that particular district, District 7, District 4, 12, whatever it is, they're doing 48% DBE. Are you really creating some value there? So this is where it's going to take some self-reflection and say, okay, what is my value? You know, am I better, cheaper, and faster? That's a possibility. So those are two different strategies right there that you should be doing on a monthly basis, just keeping track of who's getting contract awards and who's out there that I may need to outreach to.
Great. That's super helpful. Thank you so much, Renee. Renee put his contact information in the chat, and there's also, it's up on the screen right now. And as I indicated earlier, we'll be sending out a copy of this presentation to everyone who's in attendance in the next day or two.